It's not a secret that it's a very small number of people can go to the very first interviews and representing themselves with the best answers and putting their ideas and responses in a way that would describe all of their experience in the best possible way. It's also quite the opposite. A lot of people without training would not be doing their best and would not be representing all of their experience in the best possible way. To help, we created interviews inside LinkBlink Pro. Let me show you how it works. So you go to the interviews and you create a new role. For the role description, you just type in a couple of things which characterize your goal role, or you could just copy paste the job description if you're targeting a very specific job description for some of the company. Here I'll just type a couple of words showing you the way how you can convert kind of a couple of words into the job description and then test yourself against it by interviewing. So let's try hire a technical project manager and see, let's say, if the job is going to be what we expect, if we're going to be good or not hiring ourselves to this position. So here's the generated job description, includes responsibilities and required skills and qualifications, as well as experience. We can edit it here, or just for the sake of this exercise, we'll just leave it as it is. What we can also change is we can change the way the interview is structured. So by default, it's more behavioral. So it's based on our situation, task, and it also can be open-ended, which is more like what technology is better and what do we think about this or that. Practically, I believe most of the interviews in the business today is star-based, so we'll leave it as star. And then you can also select the focus. You can select any focus where you think you have more blind spots, just to help yourself kind of go through the most complex for your situation questions and be better in real-life interviews. For instance, it could be technical skills assessment, it could be leadership, cross-functional team collaboration. Also can be custom focus. So for instance, here you can specify additional custom focus for the interview. Let's say AI systems with LLM would be the focus for this one. And we save it, and we also can change the number of questions we want in this specific interview. By default, it's 10. Let's leave it as is. And we go ahead and generate a batch of questions designated for this role. We can also edit these questions as they appear. If some of them do not make sense to your case, you can just drop them. If they make sense, you can leave them. The interview is structured in a way that the interview goes from the very first to the very last one. So if there are some of the questions that you don't want to answer during the interview session, you can just skip them by telling AI bot that you don't have any experience with that, you would like to skip that question. Or you can just end the interview altogether if you reach some point where you don't want to answer any other questions and just want to see the summary, how you perform. So here's the questions batch, and you see that yeah, it's all kind of questions, including the shareholders management and the budget, cross-functional team management, obviously agile management, and etc. So I'll leave all of these questions and we'll go to the next step, which is the interview creation. So I'll just go ahead and select the depth level. By default, it's light, and most of the light interviews in our application are going to be one question, one response. Moderate is tracking our responses more carefully, and if it's not full response to the question, it will re-ask. Deep is even more deeper conversation on every topic. So if you are not going to spend a lot of time in conversation with AI, moderate is probably the right way to go to stay close to the real life case and still not spend a lot of time. Deep is if you want to really practice quite a complex interview case, and if you really want to, really work out best of your answers on interview questions, and you have time and dedication for it. I'll go with moderate, and I'll click next to actually, schedule our interview. Now we can start the interview. Once I start the interview, I'm going to be redirected to the interview chat room, and this is where the conversation with AI chatbot starts. I can see here the job description that we just generated together, and I can answer here by just typing the answers. So for instance, the question is about agile methodologies and what challenges did I face when I was working with agile. And I could be answering in both typing. So I can say agile is a great framework. And I can continue by showing you that you can also answer by voice. So you can click on the mic here and start answering this question as you would do on a real interview. So let me show you how it works. I had experience working in Agile during most of my life, and I completed around 5 projects by using Agile Scrum methodology. I don't recall any specific challenges or cases where I would need to have a really long thought, but a lot of the challenges within the teams are not due to Agile itself, but just to the related to the nature of work that we do. It's a scope creep, it's additional requirements which we didn't anticipate it, as well as its longer stabilization curves for the products that we develop. So this is an example answer, right? Might be meaningful, might be not. For the purpose of this demo, it could be anything. What you can also do here is you can do the edits. So I currently have a Grammarly plugin kicks in, and it shows me that, yeah, I can optimize my answer, which you can do, or you can just keep it as is for the sake of making it more real. So I'll not do any changes here. I'll just submit my answer. Sometimes when you dictate, the voice recognition could be misinterpreting some of the words. It's actually quite commonly happens when you use some technology jargons like technology names, etc. So you need to probably verify if it really understood you well. But basically it goes through all of this interview like this. If, let's say, at some moment of time you're really tired of answering the question, you can just say that you don't have an experience or you want to skip this question. Here's how it works. So it asks me currently about my experience with Jira. I'm just going to say that I don't have this experience, and you're going to see that the interview progress is going to flip to the next question. I don't have experience with Atlassian and Jira, so specifically I cannot really share any details for this one. Let's go ahead to the next question that you have. So I did answer it in a way that it will just flip it to the next question. It will actually work if you would just try to attempt to answer, then you would just get, obviously, the assessment of your answer, and you can try to improve it. But as you can see, we flipped to another one, and now it's about SDLC and the phases of the software development lifecycle. What you can also do is, let's say at some point of time you really overestimated your time and effort, and you want to end this interview. So you can go to this menu and just force the end of the interview. It's not revertible, so once you decide to end it, it will be ended. And you will see the screen of the end of the interview. It's exactly the same screen which would be shown to you if you just go through the interview to the end. Here you can assess the quality of the interview that you had, submit feedback to us, which we do appreciate because that helps us understand if it went okay or not. And if you go back to your dashboard and to the interviews, you're going to see your interview here as completed and the date for it, and as well as you can check the summary. If I'm going to be opening the check summary right now, it's already ready. Usually it takes up to a couple of minutes to get it ready. This time we're lucky, and it was quite a short interview. So we talked about project management, the project management tools, and for the sake of the demo, I'm going to go back to the Goal Wizard and select the interview that I did just before this session, which was more complete, and I had quite a long conversation with AI. And what you can see here is the interview summary. Interview summary gives you the overall score. It could be from 0 to 100. 100 is the best score. 77 is not bad, but there's still a lot of things that I could improve. Here you can see the job requirements that we generated, and you can see my scores. So it's a score and the depth of the answer, which I gave. The score is basically how well I fit, and depth is how well I answered the question. So for instance, if depth is low, that means that maybe I didn't even attempt to answer a question in the best possible way. So the score itself could be not correct because the depth is really low. So for instance, I'm going to give an example of cloud technologies. I'm going to just open it. You see here that I have the answer score, which is 40%, and I have the score of the question coverage, which is 20%. I have the explanation why this score, okay? So for instance, in the job requirement, the AWS was a required skill, and I mentioned that during the conversation, you can see here, that I have experience working with AWS, and we've been deploying our core systems there. but I didn't really provide insights into my technology skills with AWS. So I just said that, yeah, generally cloud is better than on-prem, which of course is just an opinion, could be not correct. And then I said that, when the follow-up question was around specific examples of AWS services and how did it help with scalability, I just said that I'm not technical enough to answer that. So based on that, um, depth is not great, and the score again is not great. So the position that I was interviewing for this one is a technical project manager, and it sort of expects that the people who's going to be in this role is still quite technical. And we also see the gap notes, which explain that I need to try to improve specific AWS knowledge and Azure and be more technically hands-on, literally. Okay. And what I can do from here, so this is the general feedback on this topic. I can try to do a couple of things. First, I can immediately try to enhance my answer. So I go to enhance answer, and I select enhance answer, and I select whether there's going to be behavioral based on what we discussed during the interview with AI, or it's going to be open-ended, and what specific focus of enhancement I want. I need a technical skill enhancement, and I want to generate one enhancement, which is all right for me. So what the system will do, it will just check the conversation, see my answer, see the question, and try to build my answer in a way that would represent my skills better. So here you see that it suggests the answer to the question in a way it puts here, that it's basically talks about the EC2, scalable compute capacity, and all of it. You need to be very careful if you have this experience or not. We usually try to generate two possible enhancements. The first one is close to your experience, and if you expand, we also generate a version which is more invented, which has more invented facts and things which are definitely not within your experience profile, at least based on what we see during the chat. So you can see how it can look and see if you can use those. You can also from here go back and work on two things. First, you can search for the upskill content for your gaps. So as the gap is AWS, Azure, and specific technology, you can click on the upskill content. And from here, you can get recommendations. It's not a search specifically, it's a recommendation based on what LLM knows about specifics of the subject of my gap, what video content, books, online courses it would recommend for me to upskill. Here, for instance, I have a couple of recommendations for videos. I also have recommendations for books, which are targeting both the Azure and I believe it should be the AWS, you can see here, as well as I have online courses recommendation, and I have audio books and podcasts. How this recommendation work? So from here, you can go to the Google search and search for the recommended item. So for instance, in this case, the recommendation is a book, and I can go ahead and try find it in Google. And here's basically the search query that built on top of my my book recommendations. You can see it's not super great, and this sometimes happens. So if I go back and select another one, designing data intensive applications, and again try to find it in Google, you see that it worked this time. So with LLM recommendations, it's sometimes hit or miss. I believe it's more hit than miss, but you need to be advised that with LLM recommendation, it's not always works as expected. So I'm going to go back to the platform, and if you are happy with some of the recommendation, let's say with this one we're happy, we can add it to the learning board. By adding to the learning board, you basically just put it for the further learning, and this item will appear inside your learning board. So if you go to your learning board, you're going to see that I have a lot of items here, and yeah, I will see the book that I just added here as well. It's probably this one, and I can then manage the progress and go put it into learning once I'm going to be starting doing this. But I'll just go back and show you another great thing. So I'll go back to my interview, which I just completed, which I was showcasing to you. Go to the cloud technologies again. And from here, I can upskill myself with learning bytes. So you here have a button, upskill with bytes, which will turn my gap into learning bytes. So what I need is just click to the button on the button, go to the learning byte, check if I want to add anything on top of the gap described. And if I'm happy with it, I just hit apply, and LinkBlink will create a learning byte for me to upskill me on the gap identified during the interview. So if you have an interview and during the interview you identify a couple of blind spots, like topics that you really need to be better with, you can turn them immediately into the learning bytes and put them into schedule to learn, or just learn through our website and really improve the skills, and then try again, and hopefully you're going to be better with it. So for instance, right now we already generated the learning bytes related to the cloud technologies. As you can see, we have 5 steps here, and we can open the journal view, and you're going to see the content, which is basically the Amazon EC2 S3 introduction, which are basically, quite focused on more managerial kind of thing. So what they do, the descriptions, then a little bit more on the deploying with the AWS and how it works, and then the retail architecture with AWS, and then the Azure's services, which are an analog to the AWS, which were just mentioned. So you can also just try to look into those, as well as case studies related to cloud-based retail software deployments. And that's the last slide, the last byte, which is not the end. So here you cannot see it, but if you go to the Byte Studio and if you select the byte, you can see that it also has the quizzes, which you're going to be able to solve if you use Messenger app. So they will be messaged to you along with materials, so you could practice how you basically go through the bytes and how well you understand the bytes materials. And again, as you go through this, for instance, if this is the byte that you just finished and it worked well, you can also do continuation of the byte. So you can put here a focus. Let's say you decide to focus more on AWS, it should be CI/CD focus. So you put it here, and maybe you also would want to mention on migrations from on-prem to, let's say, AWS. Okay, and then you apply, and this will create you a learning byte, which is a continuation of the previous byte on the intros to the cloud, AWS and Azure, with a special focus on CI/CD as well as migrations. So this is the fastest way to learn. And then as you're done with it, you can go back to your interviews and take the role. I have a lot of roles here, but this is the one that we just generated. This is the one that I showed to you as an example with the responses. Go to your interview and create a new interview, which you just basically, simulate again and try your best answering the questions, and try to see what's going to be your score if you improve and become better, and hopefully you do. And this really helps you get in the best possible shape before your real actual interviews, when you need to represent your best to be able to get your job, to feed your families, and to progress through your careers. So I hope we helped you a little bit to go through your interview process and be more successful with it with our tools. Thank you very much, and good luck on your interviews. Happy learning.